All right. Good afternoon, guys. Thank you guys for being a part of this presentation. We have some information for you. Our presentation today is a little bit more about some investigations and cases that we've worked locally, and we'll just go ahead and introduce ourselves and we'll go over the PowerPoint as we go. So, you want to hit the next slide, please?
So due to the fact that we're talking about cases, you're going to see some video, hear some sound portions that come from the actual subculture itself. I did the best I could to sanitize it, but you're going to hear some cuss words. You're going to hear some different terminology. You won't offend me, you won't offend my partner. If it's too much, you're more than welcome to step out of the room. It won't hurt our feelings any. But we're trying to give you what's actually going on within the borders of Stanislaus County. So at least you guys have a general knowledge of it.
When you work in the service industry, you see a lot of homes in all sorts of areas. You meet a lot of people and even pets. Out here, you have to take your job seriously. And always be on the lookout to find better ways to safeguard the people you serve. Or the products that protect their homes. Or services to keep their homes running just right. You work hard every day because you don't want to miss a thing. Like you just did.
Do I have your attention?
Workers who are in people's homes on a day-to-day basis are a critical part of identifying potential cases of human trafficking and combating this horrific crime. When you know what to look for, you can help bring an end to human trafficking.
As service workers, you play an important role in the detection of human trafficking. You are on the front lines, in homes and in neighborhoods. Now that you know some of the signs to look for, you can help.
You go next slide, please.
Together.
So I like that video. It's very boring when it starts out. And you're kind of daydreaming and you miss all the little signs that they point out at the very end of it. Yeah, I don't take credit for that. That was done by the captain up there for that agency. First time I saw it, I was like, oh, and then I was like, wait, what? And I went back, started looking. You see those little identifiers. I've seen the video 200 times now, but like it still gets me every time. This stupidest little thing, a lock on a door, bars on a window, little things should get your attention, get you looking. Well, real quick, so this is who we are. I'm a detective with the Stanislaus County Sheriff's Department, Casey Cooper. I've been with the department, give or take, 15 years. I'm currently assigned to internet crimes against children and human trafficking.
And I'm Deputy Probation Officer Victor Bulgarian. I'm with the Probation Department, and I'm also assigned with the sheriffs to work on human trafficking related cases. So we investigate together on anything that's, child sex crimes up to human trafficking, anything like that. And I'm also in charge of supervising a caseload of offenders who have already been probably convicted of certain crimes who are now on probation, and it's now my job to continue to supervise and monitor and make sure they abide by whatever court orders they have. And if they don't, they get arrested, go back to jail, and we continue to follow up on those people as well.
So real quick, what we're going to cover is the similarities and difference between HT and ICAC. That slide's like really quick. Then we're going to go into cases that have occurred within the borders of Stanislaus County. When we get into those, you're going to see video of an interview. You're going to hear some clips. Just understand the topic that we're listening to. You're going to hear some language. Okay. Basic stats, and at the end we have our little service provider slide of of agencies in Stanislaus County. So if anyone wants contact information for either one of us or those we provided at the end, okay? Pretty much similarities and differences, right, between human trafficking and internet crimes against children. Human trafficking victims can be adults and minors, right? Crimes against children or internet crimes, they're just minors, and that's the way we break it down. Both these crimes occur in person and over social media, right? And depending on the severity or what actions are occurring, these crimes can lead into human trafficking. Okay, so this is our, stand too close? This was my first case. So I ran an undercover profile. Mind you, I was a cop for a couple years at this point in time, but this is my first UC profile. I put myself up on a social media as a 16-year-old girl. I attended a high school. I did swim, water polo, you name it, and that's what I portrayed myself on. I was a little Hispanic girl. During this investigation with this guy, he likes to call himself J-Bone, A.J. Rosinski, he pandered me for the purpose of prostitution. He communicated with me over electronic device. Each one of these is a different charge. He sent me explicit material, sexually explicit, and then he attempted to arrange a meeting with me to have sex. So, and this is how this investigation worked out. All right, so pretty much how it worked out is on 5/15/18. Mind, this is my first one. Okay, so it was kind of rough. On 5/15, I had a profile and he communicated with me. I didn't go fishing for him. He sought me out. He contacted me. He communicated with me. During those conversations, I made him extremely aware that I was a 16-year-old. I played water polo. I did swim. Attended Patterson High School. It was very clear over and over again. I told him my mom's coming home. I got to do my homework. I got to go to bed. I got a test tomorrow. Everything was very explicit. He knew how old I was. Okay.
Hey.
What's up, Dad?
Hey. What's up?
Not much, I'm about to get on a train.
Are you getting on the train?
Yeah,
All right, get on
I
there.
just took one of the girls and I took their phone because I was worried you weren't gonna pick me up.
I'm sorry. Well, I've been trying to contact you for days. I'm gonna get an Uber cab and I'll meet you over there. Okay?
You're gonna get a what?
I'm gonna get an Uber cab and come and pick you up.
Okay,
I have my-
that's deal.
That's awesome. Yeah, I might be a little sweaty.
So that was a conversation. So pretty much what happened over that time frame we were communicating, his plan was to meet with me, and then he was going to set me up to turn dates, to turn tricks, to make money for him, doing sex acts, in Antioch and in Modesto. So he was researching it, figured out how he was going to turn me out, pretty much. Kept talking to him, kept communicating with him, and we ended up identifying, if you look at where this is, we decided to arrest him at the Turlockton Air Amtrak station. That's where we planned to arrest him at, okay? So sitting there, and we thought it'd be a good idea, bear with me on this first one, okay? We told him that we were gonna be coming off the bus wearing a black mini skirt, boots up to our knees, and we were gonna have purple hair, right? We figured, what are the chances of someone coming off an Amtrak station with that description, okay? We figured, you know, our age group, yeah, we're dead on, right? We have a bunch of cop cars around, unmarked and marked, sitting around waiting. And this gal got off, purple hair, black mini skirt, boots up to her knees. J-Bone here thinks it's us, gets out, walks up, starts talking to her, grabs her suitcase. She, at that point in time,
She's also mindful. She had an Uber there for her to pick her up as well. So, what are the coincidence, right? Awful coincidence.
so she thinks Mr. Rosinski is her Uber ride. So obviously we acted. We hook him, we run up, we contact him. She had no clue that she thought that was her Uber, plain and simple. That's the easiest way to go about it. She was going to get in the ride with him, right? She ended up being like 23. She wasn't a minor, but he was there to pick me up, okay? The voice that you heard, that was one of our undercover deputies. She's like this tall. She's a little ball of fire. She looks like she's 14, but she can spin it pretty good. We ended up arresting him. That was him in the jail cell the day that we hooked him. He doesn't look too happy. Overall, it was a long investigation, longer than what we run now. I let it go for about 2 months. Now, maybe a couple days to a week. We try not to let it go drag out that far. But first one, we were trying to make sure we had enough evidence to make sure we could slam him when we went to court.
And he is actually one that did some jail time, and he's actually currently still on my caseload. So he's one that I'm actively supervising and making sure that he's still abiding, checking his phone, checking his media, making sure he's not doing what he's supposed to do. I have him in a residential treatment housing, transitional housing, where I know if I'm not there, I know there's staff there that can always update me and make sure check-in times, check-out times, all that stuff. So that's also part of my job, make sure that, when I know there's certain people that are on for sex trafficking-related crimes, I make sure I keep an eye on them. I may slap an ankle monitor on them, and that way I know whereabouts he can be. I know what areas he can't be, congregating, so I'll make sure I follow up on all that.
So yeah, that's just to show you, that's Turlockton there, right? It's in our neck of the woods. This guy was from Modesto. He thought I was in Fresno. So he was contacting me when he thought I was out of the area coming to him. Even though everything said Patterson, I told him I was in Fresno. He bought it. And I don't look like a 16-year-old girl, so. Yeah, there you go. All right, so this is after we've had a couple attempts, we started working it. This is William Stewart. So like I said, the first one was he wanted to procure me for the purpose of prostitution, right? That ends up with me being a minor, that lined it up into human trafficking. This guy here didn't want to procure me for prostitution, he just wanted to have sex with me. That's all he wanted to do, okay? An older gentleman. So what we were investigating him for, because he contacted me, I didn't reach out to him, communicating over an electronic device for sexual purposes, sending explicit material, arranging a meeting, and attempted child abuse. The reason it's attempted is because I am not a child. I'm pretending to be one. So if I was really a child, it'd be child abuse. But because I'm an adult pretending, it lands on the attempting side. You go to the next one. All right, during this investigation, on 2/13/19, this one we weren't really rushing on. We had several going at the same time. I wasn't in a big rush on this one at first, but you'll see towards the end of why we kicked it up. He contacted me during our conversations. He was aware I was a minor. Same thing, told him water polo. I stick to water polo. My kids play water polo, so it makes it really easy. Told him I was doing water polo. Mom, same thing. Mom's coming home. I got the homework. He fully knew about it. Doing a background on him, we knew he was a retired firefighter. We noticed that on his background that he put in to work for the El Dorado School District. So we started looking a little bit more, and we discovered he was an active campus supervisor for their high school at that school district. So he was a deacon at their local church. So we kicked it up a notch. Like, we didn't have a choice. He's at a high school. He has immediate access to children. So game on, right? As the investigation kept going, he would send me pictures of himself, all different angles. And kept going, got a little bit more. Like I said, once we discovered he worked for El Dorado, so the investigation started on the 13th. On the 22nd, we created a team. We drove down to El Dorado. What we ended up doing is the next slide have the sound, I think. I'll let you listen to the sound real quick.
Kevin?
Hello?
Hey.
Hello?
Yeah, Shyla.
Oh, hi.
How you doing?
Thank you.
Good.
Okay.
How are you?
I'm good.
Did you get, what?
Huh?
I said, what?
Oh, man, I said I was hoping you'd call.
Yeah. I want to say hi.
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
I just sent you another pic, baby.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Mm,
She's not me.
You go to the next slide.
So with Mr. Stewart right there, sorry, with him right there, we carried on the conversation. What ended up happening was we drove to El Dorado, 4 different cop cars, 1 UC car. We told them we were lost because we were going to go meet them. So we went to a pizza parlor, told them we're at X, Y, and Z pizza parlor. We don't know where we're at. Can you come get us? El Dorado County, their sheriff's department was kind enough to help us out. So when he pulled out of his parking lot, or out of his driveway. They did a traffic stop on him. He was on the phone talking to our UC when they did the traffic stop. He told the cop that did the traffic stop, "Oh, I'm going to go pick my friend up. She's lost." So we brought him back here. We arrested him. El Dorado picked the case up because they wanted it. It was in their neck of the woods. He ended up lifetime 290 and 5 years, I believe, is what he ended up getting. So
This,
I'm sorry. I'm not used to microphones. I'm used to yelling. Okay. So when we arrested him, he ended up getting what's called a sex registering. So he has to register as a sex offender. At that time, it was life. I think the law's changed now, and it's like 10 years. But he ended up getting that, and then he got 5 years. He had to go to jail for 5 years.
so this next one, this was part of a operation that we did, a hotel undercover operation. That purpose for that was to attempt to target females who look like minors, and it was two-pronged, right? So we try to get look like females that look like minors to get them to come in hopes that the trafficker will bring them, and that way we can contact the trafficker, pimp, or exploiter. And then the other prong of that investigation was we would also have UC officers who would post online sex ads in attempt to, get people to try to procure them for sex or attempt them to, have supervising for pimping or trafficking. In this situation here, this was towards the end of the investigation, and he actually initially contacted one of our UC officers first, and attempt to get sex acts, and then from there it went to, hey, matter of fact, I can bring you over. I'm out of the Oakdale area, and I know of a location where you can make more money now. So now his attempt changed. Now he wanted her to make sex acts for him so he can benefit off of her. This was a pretty quick case. I mean, within 3 hours we had him arrested, and he went to court not too long ago, and he was also charged.
So this one here, he pled guilty. Like, we have the phone calls. He did what he did, and there's no way getting around it. So this was one of 63 arrests we did in a 2-day period. I can't talk about any of the other ones because they're not done yet. He just happened to go to court first and said, just sentence me, I'm done, right? During this, if you go to the next slide, you can kind of see, we'll go. There, you'll see when it pops up, there's going to be the picture of our sex ad that we posted up. The person in the sex ad, that's an undercover officer, okay? So she's an undercover officer. The top part is pretty much the services that we're providing, right? That picture was taken at the sheriff's department in the sheriff's department bathroom, right? We didn't get too creative on this, right? We just threw it out there, okay? He went out of his way. He contacted us. And within a matter of time, he went from us wanting us to perform these sex acts to now he wants to, in turn, turn me out. He wants me to work for him. He wants me to make him money. He told me that, hey, they're $500 an hour in Oakdale. That's what they'll pay for someone like you. Why don't you come work for me? Right? That easy. Mind you, oh, you can play the sound bit. You can hear him. He sounds competent. Maybe.
Hello?
What's up? Where can I meet you?
What was that?
Where you at?
I'm in Vanessa tonight. Where are you?
Me no doubt.
Okay, where are you looking to do tonight?
Whatever you wanna do.
Well, do you want me to take you dick? Do you want-
Okay. It's gonna get a lot dirtier from there. But so what this one would end up happening was Oakdale PD was in on our op with us. They were working side by side. They knew this guy. They've contacted him a bunch of times just by hearing his voice. They didn't have to look at his picture. They didn't have to figure all that out. It took us a while to ID him at first because all we had was a phone number. But we worked it from the phone number to who we thought it was. Oakdale PD came in and said, 100%, that's the dude. 100%, that's him. They ended up calling one of the patrol guys because I had right over the phone, he pandered me, plain and simple. He wanted me to perform the sex acts for him, right? He pandered me, Oakdale PD, that's good enough for arrest. Went out and found him. He happened to be in front of like Rite Aid, and they just rolled right up and hooked him. When we called the phone that he had in his hand, he nicknamed me Doe One, or nicknamed the UC. The UC was physically talking to him, but I was doing the text messaging, right? So I was Doe One, so Doe is in money, and I was number one. I was the first girl he's going to start out with, right? So this is him, proud moment. He's hooked up, standing next to the Oakdale police car. I'm doing my interview. This interview, he pretty much admitted to everything. That's why he took his deal. He was done.
And part of the initial investigations is, we start with his was procuring someone, right, to perform sex acts so that he can benefit off of it. Then once we dig into further investigation, we can determine whether now he's benefiting from now they're paying him, they're giving him money. So this was a case that we just kind of, towards the end of the night, we're like, hey, it just kind of happened, let's go with it, and let's arrest him for that. So on other cases that we have, we also make sure that we also look forward to the human trafficking part aspect, where now they're being forced to do sex acts, or if they're a minor, it's automatic human trafficking. Next slide. So this is an individual who is still on probation. During this investigation, I had a partner who was kind of hinting at me, says, hey, I have this guy that every time I go do home compliance checks, it seems like there's something weird, He lives by himself, but there's always, female lingerie there. His living room is set up a certain way where there's lighting and cameras, and it just seems weird. So that's what he told me. So I said, hey, okay, that's fine. You know what? I'm part of the human trafficking investigator, and I said, look, this is what you look for next time you go out there. If you see any of these things, call us, and him and I'll roll out and kind of dig a little deeper. So a couple months go by, they do another home compliance check, and this time there's a female there with him. And again, my partner with the probation department called me and said, hey, man, here we are again. This time there's laptops open, there's escort sites showing that they've been on escort sites. This time there's a female here, and something's going on. So, and they found like writing or envelopes of email accounts with different escort websites. So Casey and I go out there. Sure enough, we start digging a little bit, and we see that immediately as I walk in, I see a phone right there by a couch, and there's a message thread of an individual asking for specific sex acts, right? So, okay, we started investigating and determining that there's also other electronics in there that indicate there could be some commercialized sex going on. We end up identifying who the phones belong to, and we start seeing that through the phones. I did a quick, looked it up, and I saw that for sure there was commercialized sex acts linked to that phone that I had discovered in that living room. In those commercialized sex, I ID'd the female that was there. She was actually there at the house, and every picture that was there looked like it was taken inside his house. So it all kind of started meshing together.
Like, mind you, the front of his living room, he had set up the couch against the back wall, front facing towards the bedroom, and he had like lighting for her to pose in the living room. The way that his whole living room was set up was just to produce and make this so he could post her up.
So then we started with we did an interview on scene, initial interview there. We really didn't get much disclosure there at that time, but we knew there was more. We're like, this doesn't add up. So we decided to, let's take it back to the department, get a more controlled setting. That way we can dig a little more, and maybe she'd be willing to talk to us a little more. So sure enough, that's kind of what happened. We took him back. I did an interview of her where eventually she ended up just kind of disclosing what I believe was going on. She ended up saying that day we were there, he had already had dates, right, set up for her. So the dates are a meeting between a sex solicitor and a sex provider for the purpose of, commercialized sex for money. So we go there, and she started admitting all these things, and it ends up saying, we ended up figuring out that she was being forced to do that. She didn't want to do any of these things. But he was coercing her in a way that he would keep items from her, keep her food stamp cards, which what she needed. She would keep her clothing to have her keep coming back, and he would just belittle her a lot, and verbally abuse her. So we could see an interview and kind of see how that goes. Or after this.
Yeah, it's breaking. So pretty much when we got on scene there, we rolled up, we saw what we saw, we separated everyone. The trafficker and our victim were still within eyesight of each other. They couldn't hear what was being said, but they could see each other. And like you said, he knew something more was going on because she wasn't giving us everything. She seemed like every time she'd go to give an answer, she'd look towards the trafficker, right? Every single time. So Victor's like, well, there's something here. We had enough to arrest him just based off what we found at the house, and we had enough to detain her for some other stuff, right? So let's take them and interview them separately. They can't see or hear each other, right? And that's what we ended up doing. It's another section. Give us a second. It's like a 3-hour long interview. We had to sub it down like 3 minutes.
So it took about an hour and a half into the interview to where she actually said, you know what, this is what's been going on. That's when she started to disclose certain things.
So you had already missed the date? On purpose? You don't want to do it? Did he tell you?
That's my authority.
Did he tell you anything
Because
else?
he ended up yelling a little bit.
So he was yelling at you?
No, you guys say he was yelling or arguing.
No. What was he telling you? What was he yelling you about?
Because he felt stupid or.
Did he cuss at you or call you names? What did he call you?
When he says, you make me look stupid, sometimes you act like a dumb bitch. Man, I really don't want you to go through my phone, but there's some emails like,
Well,
you guys seen him when he was, when he writes me, it's like, he goes, like, I hope you can't kill the pastor, like.
I hope you got it.
We have a little argument sometimes.
What did he just say?
Now he knows that if I do have tattoo, we can be faster than everybody does.
And that's your friend?
Sometimes I feel like he pressures me.
You feel like he pressured you to do this?
On some things, I don't know about just days, but on some things, like. I'm not used to being, having friends out at night.
Have you ever felt unsafe around him?
Couple times,
Yeah?
I mean, that's my mom would step that night, but I mean.
What did you tell him?
The way I was after me,
Has he ever put hands on you? Close? Close to doing it?
I'm not telling you, I mean, like,
What was the unsafe part of it?
just felt like when he got mad, like,
Like today, for example?
yeah, maybe, I mean, I didn't feel like he was gonna hit me or anything, he just like, called me names.
What other
I
names you
felt
called?
fucking stupid in doing this shit. That's why you act like a fucking cunt, or you mean that I'm sharing some emails that you would go blow your mind. Like, it kind of made me cry a little bit.
And those are all on your phone? Okay. So,
I think I sent, yeah.
okay.
But I know I got a lot of emails from him.
How did you feel?
I blocked him. That's why I changed my number so many times. I didn't want to get rid of that, but you guys changed my number since the last one. That just probation officer, because he harasses me and tell me, like, if you don't edit,
What'd you say? Go ahead.
because I don't ask my phone right away, I get called a toad bitch because you talk shit about me about, like, I even talk to kids or you. Those are some stupid ass shit, like, it's on my phone, like, the voice messages, like, I text this, the email, like, nobody knows, it's like,
Okay.
I feel like,
So let me ask you this. There's an ultimate question here is, you know he's doing these dates to make you perform sex acts, right? For money. And that was supposed to happen today, but it didn't. And you said you missed it on purpose because you didn't want to, but you still showed up.
I should have come on my wisdom card,
Okay.
but I didn't, like, I was.
Okay, you go next slide.
Like,
So as I'm talking to her, I can see the level of manipulation he's had on her, right? You can tell it's at a point where she's now feeling like she has to be there, she has to do it. This isn't the first time she's disclosed that he calls her over, and when she gets there, there's already people waiting for her, right? And at that time, I mean, she feel like she has to do it because he's just verbally, psychologically already abused her so much. So, and this is part of the initial first interview when we're on scene still, and that's me, and then that's us interviewing them right after the arrest at the house, and then that's him waiting for the interview. As I'm interviewing her, he's waiting, and that's him laying down in the interview next door.
So I want you to know, these, when there are traffickers, or exploiters, or pimps, they don't always use violence, right? This guy was using what we call coercion. He was keeping items away from her that she needed to survive. Her EBT card, her credit card, her driver's license, right? Clothing. If she left the house without her EBT card or her DL, she can't go to the bank and get another card, right? She doesn't have no way to prove who she is. So he was making her come back to him, and every time she come back, I got 3 more dates for you. You want your card? I'll give you your EBT card, but you're going to do these 3.
So that's the kind of what made it the human trafficking part, right? The fact that now she's being kind of forced, and she said it herself, I didn't want to do it. I felt pressured. He would call me these names. He would, belittle me and all that. So
at the end, these were like I said, these were the cases we could talk about because they're done, right? We've finished them start to finish. So the first guy we talked about, J-Bone, Mr. Rosinski, he pled guilty to attempting to pander me. Out of all those charges, that's the one that he pled guilty to. He's sitting on Victor's caseload now. Mr. Stewart pled guilty to arranging a meeting with a minor, sending obscene and explicit material to a minor, and due to that, he's required to register as a sex offender. Plain and simple. Mr. Quinoa, he pled guilty to disorderly conduct, pretty much attempting to supervise is what he ended up pleading guilty to. And Rachel's pled, same thing, guilty to attempting to supervise or aiding a person in the purpose of prostitution. So they both, pretty much all these pled out pre-trial. So here we go here. This is just base stats, okay, that I kind of ran just to show you what's going on. So the blue number is just when we have one investigator working it. And then I got Vic and the orange numbers. And then the gray numbers is what we're doing right now this year. So when it was just me working it, CSEC identified it's commercially sexually exploited children. When I was working this by myself, I was able to identify 3, right? Exploiters or pimps arrested and identified, 20. Adult victims identified, 3, and that was just me doing it. Then I get Victor. Our numbers jump from 3 to 16, 20 to 135, 3 to 17, right? And then you go up. We're in March right now. We've already identified, I think up to 7 now is what we're at for CSEC kids, right? Exploiters are identified, we're at 69. Adult victims identified, 9. And that's barely going into it right now, okay?
And this is happening now. We got so many cases pending right now still that there's some good, not ones that we would like to present that show a little more of the human trafficking part aspect of it, where they're doing it to minors and adults, and it's just right now with the court process, everything's COVID hit, everything just got prolonged, but I mean, it's happening. These are some of the cases we were able to get early on, and the numbers are showing. It's here, it's happening here. We try to be proactive enough to where also, you see the ads that are there, we also try to go into there and try to pick out or identify who may look like a minor. And then we'll pretend to be like the purchaser. That way when the girl shows up, we're hoping that the pimp or the trafficker is the one bringing her. And that has happened, right? We're able to see when we do traffic stops on him, we're able to determine that, hey, he's actually bringing her and he's benefiting from her. So.
Are you able to go back to the slide of the undercover cops profile? Because I forgot to mention that. Yeah. Are you able to do that? This one right here. So when you look at this, you know this is an undercover cop. You know she's of age, right? But what we try to do is try to pose and make us look like minors when we're on there. We want people to think we're minors when we're on there, right? When they end up doing this, what someone that's looking for a minor specifically will look for keys. I can't put on there and say I'm 16 years old, right? It's a lot of people just can't do that. These sites will shut them down. So they'll post them as a 21-year-old, as an 18-year-old, as a 19-year-old, right? So 21-year-old, but if she's wearing ankle socks in the subculture, that means minor. It doesn't say it, but because in the picture, if she's wearing ankle socks, that's one thing. I'm a minor.
there's a lot of underground cues, right, that they have, and we just got to develop and catch on to those to have that knowledge.
And that's just in our area. In Stanislaus County, that's what these people that are looking for this, that's one of their cues that we learn talking to these people. You know, what makes your picture so different? Why do you have so many more Johns or so many more clients than the one next to you? Well, because I posted with ankle socks. They think I'm 16.
And one thing about Stanislaus County is you got to think about, we got 2 corridors going through here, right? We got the 5 and the 99. So it's part of a circuit to where it starts in Southern California, right? They're having girls do their thing there. They start moving them up to Fresno, then Bakersfield, Fresno, Modesto, all the way to Sacramento, Bay Area, all the way back down around. So we've ran into cases where we actually have the traffickers bringing minors just going through Modesto on their way to wherever they're taking them, Stockton, Sacramento.
So what I like to do is, it's a lot of stuff we've thrown at you, and so I try to end on a happy note. Not everything on the internet's bad, right? Not everyone's out there to get your kid. So I try to end on a happy note, let you guys see something that might make you smile a little bit. If you have questions, feel free to ask. I got no problem. We can, after the video, ask away. I'll answer whatever I can for you. And so will my partner here. We'll do the best we can, okay?
Isn't that like what social media is about today, right? Just exactly like that.
So we throw this up at the end. It has my contact information on it, Victor's contact information, all the different service providers in our area. If you guys see anything or you hear anything, our phones are on. Call us, text us. If you think you know a victim or someone that might be possibly being victimized, hit us up. If you don't want us to know directly or you want it to be investigated a little bit further, you have these other tools. So NetMec, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, are wonderful. If you shoot them any kind of a tip, they will work it and then give it to us. So, I mean, we're here for you guys. If you have questions, feel free to ask. I know we kind of ran through 4 cases real quick, but feel free.